Hello again, students. This is your flipped vocabulary lesson for Storytown, Lesson 17. To complete this activity, you will need your Storytown Lesson 17 vocab sheet, a pen or a pencil, and optionally, you might want a highlighter. So, once you've gathered your materials, let's get started. Here are the directions once again. First, watch and listen to this presentation on your own. Feel free to pause and go back as needed. Then, in the middle column, write the definition or meaning of each word. Finally, write a brief response to each question that goes along with the vocabulary word. Let's take a look at the first word. The first word on the list this week is contortion. Now, you can see that contortion has an ION ending, which means that this word is a noun. If you wanted to use the word contortion as a verb, you would take the ION ending off and just use contort. The definition of contortion is the twisting and turning of something into an unnatural shape. So, for example, you might have seen a show where the acrobats twist and turn their bodies into contortions for the entertainment of the viewers. Think about this question. What might you put through contortions to tie a knot? Write your answer on your vocab sheet. The next word on our list this week is also a noun, distraction. It also has the ION noun suffix at the end. If you want to use distraction as a verb, take that ION suffix off. The definition of distraction is something that takes your attention away from what you are supposed to be doing. So, if I were going to use distraction in a sentence, I might say, "The crying baby was a distraction when I was trying to sleep." What might distract you while you are in class? Think about your answer and write it on your vocab sheet. The third word on the list this week is faint. Faint is one of those multiple meaning words, and you may have heard this word in the past to mean passing out. But in our stories this week, we will be using the definition of faint that is an adjective or describing word. In this case, the definition of faint is not easily noticeable. So, for example, you might say, a faint sound is a whisper. To practice this word in the response box, please write your name in the response box faintly. The next word on our list this week is foresight. If we look at the word part for, F-O-R-E, and think about other words we've seen this word part in, such as before, we know that this word probably has something to do with planning in advance. And you'd be right. Foresight is a noun, which is a person, place, thing, or idea. In this case, foresight is an idea. Let's look at the definition. Foresight is the ability to envision problems or events in the future. So, for example, a person with foresight would check to see how much money they will have left before purchasing something very expensive. Why should a manager of a business have foresight? Think about your answer and write your response on your vocab sheet. Our next word is grimy, which is the word grime, drop the E and add a Y, which is one of our adjective suffixes. And sure enough, grimy is an adjective or describing word. The definition of grimy is covered with dirt or soot. You might say something like this to use the word grimy in a sentence. The mechanic's workshop was grimy because of all the cars he had worked on in there. What is something you might see in a grimy room? Write your response on your vocab sheet. Our next word this week is publicize. The IZE suffix is added to words in order to make them into verbs or action words. Publicize means to make something widely known to the public. I bet you could have guessed that because you see the word public right in the word. If you want to use the word publicize in a sentence, you might say, the restaurant publicized the fact that it won an award recently. What is something a school might publicize? Think about your response and write it on your vocab sheet. The final word on the list this week is testimony. Testimony is a noun, meaning a person, place, thing, or idea. In this case, testimony is a thing or an idea. If you wanted to use testimony in its verb form, you would use the word testify. The definition of testimony is proof in support of a fact. So, for example, you could use the word testimony like this. The witnesses, police officers, and other experts provided their testimony during the courtroom trial. Think about this question and write your response on your vocab sheet. What would serve as testimony that a football team is very good? Now you've finished all the words, so what's next? Well, you should go back to review any words you do not understand. Please highlight or circle any words you still have questions about, and we will discuss them in class. Then, be ready to play a review game in class using these words. Next, you'll be expected to read and understand stories that use these vocabulary words in your guided reading groups this week. And finally, use each word in an original sentence. That's a sentence you've come up with yourself. And this will be your end of week quiz. Finally, make sure that you have your assignment completed on time and turned in by the due date. And we'll see you next week.